Hello, this is Andrew with MyMillion.bike, and this is the recap for the Turkey Burner 2022. Before getting started, I just want to thank everyone who has subscribed to the channel. At some point during the race, the channel passed 1,000 subscribers, which is an important milestone. It's amazing, it's awesome, and timely. So thank you. For those that don't know, the Turkey Burner World Championship is a gravel race in eastern Iowa, just north of Davenport. So really easy to get to from northern Illinois, Chicago, Milwaukee, southern Wisconsin, and of course, quite a bit of Iowa. This was the second time I've ridden the Turkey Burner, and the second time it's happened. Just want to give a shout out to the organizers. Thank you. I enjoyed that there was beer and 2 types of chili at the finish, and one of those types was vegetarian. They definitely hit the spot. I know Luke, the guy who runs FitWave. We were in the same chase group at Snaggy a couple months ago. He's a great guy who clearly loves the sport. I also want to give a shout out to their marketing team, who I must say did a solid 12 out of 10 job with the collateral. I've never wanted to make posters of anybody's marketing material before. Great work. Before digging into the race, I want to say out loud that I like what FitWave and the folks who organized Snaggy Ridge are doing in eastern Iowa around gravel, both from a racing perspective and what I imagine is the larger demographic for fondo style riders that sign up for these races as a challenge, but don't intend to ride for podium or position. And just to be clear, I think that's awesome. Racing is a thing I enjoy doing, but there's plenty of space for people who just want to ride. And events like this and Snaggy are a great way to do that. And that's something worth celebrating. Committing to an event like the Turkey Burner is a win. Getting out to an event like the Turkey Burner is a win. Finishing the Turkey Burner, especially this year, no matter what distance you rode, is a win. Setting a challenge, doing the work to accomplish that goal, attempting that goal, meeting that goal, these are all success stories. Each should be celebrated. Get out there, ride your bike, it's awesome. But let's get back on topic. I like racing in eastern Iowa. Turkey Burner was a perfect example of this. The drivers are part of the why I like racing out there. There aren't many of them, but the ones that are there are pretty nice, unlike some of the places I've raced. The people are nice too. Not that they're not nice in other places, but it's worth saying out loud. It also helps being in the same time zone. And while the bike needed a bath after the race, it wasn't trashed. The chain was fine, the brakes were fine. The sand pits of Western Michigan are not as kind. Probably would have trashed both the chain and at least the rear brakes, given the weather conditions on Saturday. Speaking of the weather, the wind was terrible. All day in the 20 to 40 mile an hour range with gusts up to 60. Temperature started in the low 50s, dropped down into the mid 40s. It was raining as we lined up, and it rained off and on again throughout the event. This was the first time I've ever had to put a foot down to avoid getting windswept. A friend of mine did get swept. I spent a huge amount of time riding sideways like I was turning just to go straight. That's how bad it was. Without a doubt, this was the most challenging weather that I have ever ridden a bike in. But that doesn't mean it wasn't fun. It was actually all the types of fun, but only type 3 because of the weather. The downward sloping temperature made it harder to plan for. I was overdressed at the beginning, I overheated, I ended up taking off my arm warmers early, only needing to put them back on again later. Let's just say I was really glad that I had thought to bring an extra set of winter gloves. I definitely needed them by the end. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get back to the race. We started off in a sensible way. There was a hole shot a little bit down the road, so a couple of riders went for it. That ramped up the pace dramatically at the beginning. I expected that it would slow down a bit after that, but it didn't. I figured out pretty quickly that I had forgotten to bring my racing legs, and I ended up getting popped at 2 miles. Wasn't quite ready to accept that, so I clawed my way back to the group and managed to hang with them another 2 miles. But I just couldn't match the accelerations. I did keep them in sight for quite a while, and I thought I might be able to catch them on a section of road a bit later, but they were clearly driving the pace, so that didn't work out. When your race is done, you can decide to have a nice day on the bike, or you can let it get to you. Having a nice day on the bike seemed like the better option, so that's what I did. Fortunately, a friend of mine had been sitting on my wheel the whole time, so we had a brief conversation on the topic and decided to transition to a more fondo style approach. What that meant in practice was that we spent time chatting when we could hear each other, rode a relatively comfortable pace, tried not to get blown into any ditches, and were really careful in the corners because of the mega wind shifts. We stopped a couple of times, once to deal with biology, and again so I could put my arm warmers back on, although technically I only stopped to put one of them on after almost getting frumed while putting the other one on. It had rained heavily the night before, so the road was soaked. Much of the course was like riding in peanut butter, except where there was deep gravel, then it was like riding in marbles. There was just enough tarmac in the mix to keep it interesting and provide a little solace, at least from the surface. What that meant was that you had to stay on the pedals all of the time, even when you had a tailwind. Although, in those brief moments of tailwind, the world would get quiet again. That constant vacuum cleaner in your ears noise went away. It was really, really nice. And I wished there was more of it. I ended up doing 217 watts average with a 233 watt normalized power, which is pretty high for me, especially over the 4 hours and 21 minutes we spent on the course. Luke makes a great course, so definitely props to him on that. Those weren't the only times we stopped. Unfortunately, there was a route issue, which ended up meaning that we chose to stop 3 more times to ensure that we didn't accidentally ride to Wisconsin, although that would have been tempting given the wind direction. Route issues should never happen, but unfortunately they do, even in big races. I have experienced them in other races as well, and when it happens, I just don't get it. That said, this is not something that I or others have experienced in other FitWave races, and I know that they're still very new at this, so I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt for next time. I hope that the other folks who made it out on Saturday feel the same way, because as I said earlier, I really like racing in Eastern Iowa. Our fondo was probably a little different from what other people mean when they say it, because there were a couple times when we really hit it. The first time was when a large group got close enough that it caused me some concern, and I know that's not very fondo. Fortunately, there were some rollers handy, and we never saw them again. I'm not gonna lie and say I wouldn't have hit those rollers even if there wasn't a group chasing us. I love surfing rollers, but it was a nice excuse to put down some watts. The second time was after the last time we stopped to check the route. A couple of guys passed us while I was staring at my phone, and my friend wasn't having it. He went on a mission. He chased them down with some urgency. One tried to jump on as we passed. He didn't last for very long. I don't have video of this because my GoPro bricked itself shortly after we altered course. I guess the weather was so bad it decided to take a DNF. I uploaded the footage of what I have on YouTube on Sunday, and I'll update the description with a link when it finishes processing. Even if it hadn't crapped out, I'm not sure there's much else to say. We just wrote it in. We finished the race together, same time across the line. This is the point when I normally talk about the things that I learned from the race, but with my race being over so quickly, there wasn't much opportunity to learn anything in the moment. But there are a couple of things that I'm going to try to change going forward, at least in the short term, to see how they work out. I need to figure out the whole lack of legs thing. It could be a one-off. That definitely happens. Can't be on all the time. But I suspect it had something to do with driving out in the morning. We got out pretty early, spent 3 hours in the car, had some stuff not go quite to plan. So I arrived a little rushed and a little stressed. The next time I'm going to try going out the night before, even though I wouldn't need to for a race that starts at 10 a.m. in Eastern Iowa. I just want to see what happens. The other thing is that I could have planned my training last week better. This wasn't a priority race, so I didn't taper, and I wouldn't change that. But I probably shouldn't have let how I was feeling, which was good, determine my workouts 2 days prior. Something with intensity, but probably not Tabata level intensity, would have been a safer choice. I might have mentioned in a previous video, but I can't remember, that last year's turkey burner was fairly key for me. It was my third race, and it's where things started clicking, although clearly I still have a lot to learn. It was fun in a way that the two prior weren't. Part of that was the whole Iowa fit wave thing, and part of it was that I was able to start applying some of the things that I'd learned to get a better result. And I don't mean in a standings kind of way, because ultimately, while it's nice to end up on the podium or top 10 or whatever, what determines whether you win is mostly a question of how you feel about it afterwards. This is a hobby. It's just a thing we do for fun. So that's the metric that's important for me. And I felt good about last year's result. And I feel good about the result this year. I just need to figure out the whole legs thing. Having made it all of the turkey burners, I plan to put next year's on the calendar for sure. I hope you found that useful. If you did, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or comments, drop them below and I will get to them as soon as I can. Thanks.